Raquel Welch, the legendary fiery beauty who dominated Hollywood for decades, became famous for her unshakable charisma, dominance, and self-assurance. The general public seemed to think she was impervious to temptation and untouchable. But when she was 82 years old, she shocked everyone by revealing the identities of the 5 men she loved the most. None of these were casual flings. Her intense urges disrupted her concentration and botched multiple takes on filming. And you'll know why she hid them for so long after you hear the first name. The caress of Frank Sinatra, the one who shattered her self-control. Raquel Welch ranks Frank Sinatra highest among the men she admires, admitting that she admires him more than anybody else. The one and only individual capable of subduing her poise with a single strategic motion. They had their moment at a 1973 Beverly Hills charity dinner, which Raquel had anticipated as being little more than another evening of photographers, champagne, and courteous small conversation. However, things changed the moment Sinatra came close to her. As he leaned in to murmur something only she could hear, he greeted her in a manner he rarely used, gently placing one hand on the small of her back and guiding her through the crowd. Afterwards, Raquel confessed that the touch made her feel sick to her stomach. "He held you as if he had known you for all time," she recalled. It was very confident without being forward. It was precisely because of this self-assurance that Sinatra rose to the position of man she ranked most. He was reserved, not boastful, not aggressive, and not flirtatious. The moment Frank stepped foot in the room, the atmosphere changed to accommodate him. His presence was palpable to Raquel, even before she laid eyes on him, she claimed. As the night progressed, he found increasingly inconsequential reasons to be near her, such as shifting the chair behind her, stroking her shoulder, or placing his hand on her arm while making a joke. Even though no one else could have noticed, these touches softened her determination. She was embarrassed to admit that she would blank out if he leaned in close. The fact that Sinatra didn't feel the need to act was something she admired. He possessed an undeniable charm that he wielded with ease. In private, Raquel, a lady who took great satisfaction in maintaining her professionalism, admitted that Frank was the one and only man who had ever provoked her to consider. "I would not refuse his request that I go away for the weekend." That posed a threat. The excitement was in that. Because of this, Sinatra became her favorite, the late Clint Eastwood. She was unable to resist the subtle draw. Even her closest friends were surprised to see Clint Eastwood settle into the number 2 place. When they first laid eyes on each other, Raquel Welch confessed she felt an overwhelming physical attraction. They didn't start out with jokes or flirtation when they had chemistry. It all started in the early 1970s during a lighting test on a soundstage as Clint approached her. He was supposed to ask for room or change the perspective, according to Raquel. To the contrary, he extended 2 fingers and delicately raised her chin, directing her gaze toward the key light. She lost her breath from the sudden shock of the graze that ran over her jawline, which was scarcely more than a touch. She said afterwards that Clint was very discreet about his touching, but that whenever he did, it was felt all over you. That posed a threat. Clint stopped pursuing. He barely offered a praise. The impossibility of serenity gave him power. He stared at her silently for a long moment before finally cracking a gentle, almost hesitant smile. An intense attraction, like heat radiating off of cold metal, drew Raquel to him, she confessed once. On set, Clint would often remain at a comfortable distance, allowing her to feel his breath on her shoulder without being too close to say anything wrong. Short lines would be mumbled by him. The deep, personal tone told Raquel, "You're good today," or "That's the take." Raquel felt it in her spine rather than her ears. Unfiltered, subdued, and purposeful, that was Clint's charm. A kind of manly constraint that, to Raquel's surprise, made her feel carefree, young, and tempted. The limit was never crossed by him. She wanted him to do it for precisely that reason. Bert Reynolds, the man responsible for her embarrassing meltdown on TV. This man ranks third on Raquel Welch's list of the most dangerously attractive men she has ever worked with. Burt Reynolds is the only co-star who ever managed to separate her character from the enthralling connection they shared. Their explosive power was the source of their spark. Burt, in an attempt to make it look scripted, grasped her waist while filming 100 Rifles in 1969. Burt, however, dragged her violently against his chest, protecting her with his body in a manner that caused the entire team to halt for half a second, rather than the light stage tug that the director had anticipated. Raquel made no secret of what transpired. Her breathing became irregular as she chuckled, her cheeks turning red. It felt too natural, she said afterwards, far too ordinary. Burt experienced this jolt. She remarked, "You felt it before he touched you, and twice as hard when he finally did? He might be so unexpected." He would whisper a joke into her ear so softly that the microphone wouldn't pick it up 1 second. Between takes, he would casually put an arm around her shoulders the following time. Occasionally, Raquel admitted, she couldn't tell you when the scene ended and the guy started. On multiple occasions, the directors had to press the cut button because their chemistry was just too lively and carefree. And therein lay the true peril. She was able to embrace the thrill instead of running away from it because of Burt. Even though Raquel did her best to avoid the camera, he brought out her worst side. Quite impulsive, enthusiastic, and receptive to the idea that a single misstep could potentially feel correct. The late Dean Martin. The tender caress that rendered her feeble. Raquel Welch surprised everyone by placing him in 4th place. Her expression revealed her decision. Dean Martin was the one who melted her in ways she couldn't have anticipated. In 1968, during the Bandolero advertising shot, they had their moment. After Raquel had been rigidly posing for almost an hour, Dean came up behind her, put his hand on her shoulder, and drew her in for the ideal shot. However, he proceeded to keep his hand steady. It was warm, steady, and purposeful, lasting only a single second longer than courteous. A man's daring move, no matter how hard he tried, couldn't have hurt her poise more than that 1 second. She recalled every single detail. His gentle caress of her collarbone with his thumb, the subtle aroma of cologne, and his gentle giggle at her blush. According to Raquel, Dean touched you in a gentlemanly manner. However, he treated you like a man. Lethal was the combination in question. Dean Martin's charisma was so genuine it appeared risky, but it worked wonders in lowering her defenses. His body language was non-teasing. By calming it, he achieved tranquility. Silently, he extended an invitation for her to remain near. Dean would delicately place his hand on Raquel's lower back between takes, guiding her through busy sets in a way that made her feel safe rather than rushed. She admitted that there were moments when she leaned against him without thinking, drawn to the comforting warmth he exuded. Instead of being pursued, he made her feel selected. The allure of that discreet closeness proved irresistible to Raquel Welch. Paul Newman, the one who struck her the most with his gentle charisma. Since Raquel Welch's desire to Paul Newman was subtle and unassuming, she kept 5th place for the guy nobody would have guessed. She had never openly acknowledged how hard it struck her, but it had sneaked up on her quietly. In 1975, during a charity special rehearsal, they had their moment. Unlike other performers, Paul refrained from teasing Raquel when she fumbled a line, which she laughed off. Instead, he moved in closer, gently removed the script from her hands, and caressed hers with his own. Without retracting her hand, Raquel felt her breath shorten. "Paul didn't flirt," she said later. "You felt chosen by him. Not only physical contact. He touched her in a certain way, kind but methodical, kind yet restrained, as if he was fully aware of his impact on her and purposefully used it sparingly." Paul exhibited no signs of irresponsibility or playfulness. His subtle manliness sent shivers down Raquel's spine for reasons she couldn't fathom. Paul would lean in close to fix a line reading in between practices, his voice steady and gentle, his face inches from hers. As he led her to the stage, he would gently tap her forearm to get her attention or lay his hand on her back. These movements were minor. They made Raquel feel something she tried not to show. Paul Newman's earnestness and piercing blue eyes unnerved her, stirring a depth she wasn't accustomed to feeling. A tenderness. She didn't lose control because of him. He tempted her to do it. That was the type of longing that Raquel Welch would always remember. Which of these 5 men caught you off guard the most now that Raquel's long-kept secrets are out? Leave a comment with your opinions. I'm interested to know which name caught you off guard the way it did Hollywood. Also, hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and keep an eye out for more hidden gems from the golden age of film.